Welcome to No Talking During the Movies. I am your host, Stephen Austin.
And I am your co-host, Tank.
Nice.
So,
Tank is Rhodey, and I am Tony. Not for friendship, but because next year he'll be replaced by a different actor.
when I
If,
demand too much money.
yeah, when you demand too much money.
Yeah, fair enough.
Man,
Fair enough.
and also, I'm happy I could get all those words out so quickly.
Yeah, you kind of stumbled on it a little bit.
A
I,
little
I
bit.
thought I thought you were gonna say because next year I won't be able to walk without assistance,
Oh, no.
which either way is fine. But
Oh,
so how's it
man.
going, man? How's quantity life,
Quantity life?
quarantine life? I'm,
Quarantine
I'm a
life.
little sleepy.
It's going. I've been and I've mentioned this on the last two podcasts. I've been on quite the Marvel kick because of the Avengers game that came out, and I was just like, I'm just gonna like get into the Marvel mood, and I watched all the Avengers movies, and then I was like, I'll just go back and keep watching. So now I'm just going in order, and I actually finished Age of Ultron today, and that's kind of we're gonna be talking a lot about Marvel today. But
That's
how
good
are you
stuff.
doing?
I'm great, man. I've been trying to I've been trying to watch a little bit more of the catch up on the movies and rewatch them and
Hmm.
look for things maybe I missed the first time. It's one of the really great things about having Disney Plus, honestly.
Yeah, and
Is, you know,
that
that.
also, I was putting together like my own list for Phase Three. I say my
Right.
own list, the actual list for Phase Three, and I'm going through Disney Plus, and I realized when you go to the Marvel tab, it's all in order. But I
Hmm.
was like, wait, Spider Man's missing. I realized they don't have Spider Man Homecoming on Disney Plus yet.
Right. Right.
And I actually had to like look up when was the order because I couldn't remember.
Mm.
Uh, before Thor Ragnarok. That's the answer. After I forget, but before Thor Ragnarok.
So not an informative podcast today,
I
I'll tell
mean,
you
not
that.
today. I mean, you say you're a little sleepy. Maybe I'm a little sleepy too. Okay.
Yeah, but you're the host. I'm the co-host. The
Good point.
co-host can be sleepy.
Look, I have notes,
Okay. Fair
and
enough.
we're gonna follow them like
All right.
with the question.
Got
And
it.
this is a fun question, I think, and it relates to our discussion today. If you could change one thing in Phase One of the MCU, what would it be? Different actors, directors, or maybe a redo of a whole film. Anything is on the table. So what would you change?
After Ragnarok, you really
Yeah.
get to see the potential of what Thor could have been in the first two
Right.
movies.
Yeah.
Although the first Thor wasn't bad, it wasn't, Thor. It wasn't the second Thor for
Right.
sure. Um, and you gotta respect the hero quest and trial and things that Thor goes through.
Right, and I think last week I mentioned the first Thor is very Shakespearean, which
Absolutely.
when you watch it in that regard, like it's a 10 times better movie. Um, and then
But at the same time, after rewatching Ragnarok
yeah,
and seeing just exactly what that mythos could be, it was so fun and so
so
awesome.
perfect.
So like to see that in that new.
Yeah, it kind of. I mean, and Ragnarok is just so like artistic, and not just for like the
Mm,
splash of color that they do when he's on the other planet, but just like the Valkyrie scene.
mm-hmm.
Not Valkyrie herself, but the scene where you see all of the Valkyries fighting Hela, and it looks like a Greek painting.
Yeah,
Like it looks like a work of art. Like if they did that with the other Thor movies, I'm sure that would have.
it's like somebody gave Zack Snyder a color palette. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. That like
I mean,
slow motion
it's
like
very very
scale.
pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also it'd be hard not to want to redo the Incredible Hulk. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
That
Because it was
is
such a disaster.
that is actually my answer. I
Is
my
it?
my answer is I want them to redo Incredible Hulk. I think overall Incredible Hulk is an okay film, but there is something kind of back to my little joke about recasting. It is a little jarring when you see, Edward Norton and then it's Mark Ruffalo in the MCU. But the issue is like I feel like that's what makes Incredible Hulk feel like it's out of the MCU It feels like it's a separate movie. But I watched a documentary. The MCU's talking about how The Incredible Hulk was the second film in the MCU franchise. And I'm like, why is it never treated that way? And I think it's because it was a different actor, a different studio, and it just felt like it was out
Well,
of.
that whole movie was a disaster. You know what
Right.
I mean? From top to bottom, those guys, they couldn't agree on the storyline. And
Mm.
Ed Norton and was that Ang Lee that directed that one?
No, that was the first one. That was Hulk. That was
Uh,
the very first one where he's like bright green.
that was Eric Bana was
Yes,
Bruce
yes, he
Banner.
was Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner.
So and to me now, Mark Ruffalo is Bruce Banner. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like there's no, and the way he plays it is so good and so perfect. So
Because what I like about Bruce Banner is that he's a very brilliant, smart, but kind of like inner, like quiet scientist. It's a really
totally,
true Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's what the Hulk is. And
really insecure. He plays
yeah,
that too. You can see the way he holds his hands. Everything he does plays to the fact that he's not, this confident thing, and then all of a sudden he turns into this beast.
it's
And
I think my favorite like just Bruce Banner moment in at least phase 1 is in the Avengers when Tony and Cap are having the discussion about something's off on the helicarrier, and then Tony looks over at Bruce and says like, "No, you're thinking it too, right?" And then Bruce is just like, I just want to do my work and get out of here. That's his whole mentality. He's like,
Right.
I don't want anything to do with you people because I don't want to hurt anybody,
right.
you know.
And yeah, so yeah, that would be awesome if they could redo that move. Not even redo that movie, but I'd love to get an origin story maybe with Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo. Yeah, I
And,
think that'd
and
be
like,
cool. Well, because Edward Norton, didn't he also play Bruce as kind of like an action star?
yeah, I think that was like his whole thing, and like he was, you know, I don't want to say too actory because Ed Norton is a fantastic
Yeah,
actor,
he's great. Yeah.
but it's just it doesn't work for me. It just there's something about him like maybe like you say like he's just too action star too.
Well, because every time that I think of Bruce Banner, not the Hulk in Incredible Hulk, whenever I think of a Bruce Banner scene, it's always him running away from those guys and like jumping over like stairwells and stuff, and I'm like, this seems a little too, like he's on the run. That's what I like. Is it's supposed to have that same feel from the classic TV show where he's just like a traveler, but yeah, if you're on the run for a while, I can see how you'd like kind of be action star-y, but it was just too much. I like Bruce being the sciencey nerd who can't do much physically until he has to. You know what I
You
mean?
know, and what I'm not really into also is I don't like the new integrated Hulk.
Is that Justin texting you too?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm like, leave us alone, bud. We're doing something. The integrated Hulk? What do you mean?
from the new series, from the new
Oh, you mean Professor Hulk?
Professor Hulk. Yeah, it
Yeah.
feels like he's weaker
He
on
is.
both ends.
He is. I think me and my buddy were talking about this. I think Age of Ultron Hulk, when he gets like mind controlled by Scarlet Witch to like make him go berserk, that's the strongest he's ever been in the series. And then the weakest Hulk is Professor Hulk because he's, the brain and the brawn together, but he's not. He's not out of control because that's what makes the Hulk so strong is just that he
Right.
continuously gets worse and worse. And if he's conscious and he's thinking about his actions, he's not going to be as strong. But no, I agree. I'm not a huge fan of Professor Hulk, and I don't know how they're going to do it for like the upcoming films or She-Hulk. I know he's going to be involved in She-Hulk in some way, but I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Where Phase 4 goes is going to be a mystery.
It's going to be very different. And
Yeah, I think so.
I think we're going to have a lot to say about Phase 4 these next couple weeks as we do this Marvel, podcast. As we do this Marvel film podcast.
I mean, they've given us so much material, so much content over the last decade. Yeah. Like it's crazy, really, if you think about it.
I asked my buddy. I said, "Do you think Marvel can top what they've done? Do you think they'll ever be at Endgame level?" And he said, No, but it's gonna be different no matter what. Like even if we did get to another Endgame level event, it's not gonna feel like Endgame. Not
Mm-mm.
only because Endgame was the first of its like scale, but also because it's gonna be different stars we're seeing on screen, a different villain. It's almost gonna feel like a completely different universe, but it's just gonna be the future where MCU goes. And I think that's really the best way to say it. It's not gonna be better, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be worse. It's just going to be different.
You never forget your first love. You know what I mean? Like you're not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's the the characters that they've brought to life, and
Mm-hmm.
even though in reality the comic book characters that they have are kind of tertiary if you think about it. Like
Mm-hmm.
now they've become the most important comic book characters,
Yeah, which is crazy.
and and to us now, I mean, like everybody else that they bring in at this point is going to be a little bit. I don't know. I feel like we're gonna feel. I feel like 4 and beyond is gonna be whack. I'm not even. I don't even care,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, and maybe it's unfair because I didn't know much about Iron Man or
Right.
Captain America before all of this happened. So maybe I'm being a little bit unfair, but I feel
But I
like
mean, did you think Guardians of the Galaxy was going to be a smash hit, or did you, like everybody else, see that
no,
trailer and go, "This is gonna be weird"? A tree and a raccoon? What? And then it's
no,
like the most popular, one of the most popular movies in the franchise.
no, I mean, and I get it. It's just, it also kind of feels like that kind of magic might be gone
Gotcha.
because that's lightning in a bottle type magic that you
Yeah.
capture by catching people unexpectedly.
Yeah.
Number one, number two,
And now we're almost an audience that expects it.
and Disney at this point, man, I feel like they just, I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in
They're just gonna
what,
keep cranking them out.
not even just keep cranking them out because, they've held them back,
Yeah.
obviously, because of everything that's going on. But it's like, at some point, it's gonna start getting too cutesy and too family friendly. You know what I mean? Like it's just what they do, and I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I'm concerned for sure.
We're gonna look back on this podcast and watch Phase 4 be like the most successful thing ever. But hey, my whole mindset in life is be a pessimist because if you're right, then you get to say you were right. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're wrong, then the bright side of the coin is what we get.
Right?
So in your mind, you're probably thinking the same thing. I think Phase 4 is gonna suck. Watch it be great. You're gonna be like, well, I'm happy I was wrong because we
Yeah.
got
No.
great
If it's
movies.
great, then I'll be happy.
Yeah,
I'm not rooting against them.
of
You know
course.
what I mean?
You're
Obviously, because I want them to
boycott
be
Marvel.
good. But I want,
Yeah.
I can't imagine. First of all, this is a little myopic, but it's hard to imagine the MCU without Tony Stark.
Yeah, at this point. Yeah.
I mean, right now,
He's
and I
still going to
know,
be shaping it, though. You watch, like, 4 villains in the future are going to be like, Tony Stark did this to me, and this is why I'm evil.
it's Barista Man. Tony Stark didn't tip me after I made him a latte. I mean, like that's all the villains these days are his ex-employees, right? So
Yeah, for real. Oh, my God. But anyway, we're going to be talking a lot about Marvel, but real quick, let's at least talk about some of these new trailers. I think the biggest one to talk about, and I'm not actually going to throw you for a loop this time, is Mandalorian Season 2. What do you think?
stoked. I'm stoked.
Same.
Because the first time around, I didn't really get caught up in the hype in the beginning.
Right, because it was just something new. It was a new service.
Yeah, and I didn't care. I'm like, I'm not the biggest Star Wars guy.
Right.
Like, I'm into it, and I've seen everything, but it's not like immediately I gotta, Star Wars something. I better
Have to see
go
the
check it
next
out.
one. Yeah.
But I just end up getting Disney Plus as because I wanted to have all the Marvel movies. I wanted to have all the Disney.
You can say all of Disney, all of Star Wars.
I love Disney movies. I really do. And then so like the more and more people started talking about it, the more I thought I would check it out. And I loved the way it was a space western, and I loved everything about it. It had a I don't want to say reality, but there is a reality to it that Star Wars doesn't normally possess.
Well, I think it's because we know these like in the back of our mind, we know the Mandalorian. He's the title character, Mando. He's not gonna just die.
Mhm.
But there's still almost like this Game of Thrones in the back of my head feel like he's at serious risk all the time. And that was my biggest complaint at the beginning of the season, where I was saying how, like, at the beginning of the season, he gets his ass kicked in like every episode. And I was like, isn't this guy supposed to be a badass? I was really upset about it. But I think looking back on it now, it's what you're saying, where it's like, it's more real. He's not a superhero. He's not a Jedi.
Right.
He's a dude with a gun who's very skilled with a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And
the scene, everything from the scenery, I don't know, and also Star Wars people, don't crucify me for this, because I think they do it intentionally. I think the acting in Star Wars movies is a little stiff most of the time, and I think they do that intentionally.
Well, so George Lucas is not very known for his like masterful directing. Like,
Yeah.
What was the joke on the prequels where Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen, they were basically told the only two things were like more intensity or less intensity or something, and that was like his only two directions. And his dialogue is pretty stiff as well. Like he's not necessarily like a masterful director or actor. And we know these people to be very good actors. Like Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford, they're great actors.
You know, I don't know, man. Like you put Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman had the chemistry, the sexual chemistry of real brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? Like it was not, but flip side of that, this movie, this show, this series, directed by Jon Favreau.
Yes.
These guys are legitimately good actors.
Mm-hmm.
Everything matters. Every movement, every motion, every speech, everything is part, and it goes into it. And just from the beginning, I was like, wow, this is really cool. And the music is underrated in this, because the music kind of gives you that Western vibe.
Have you watched the Mandalorian Gallery on Disney Plus?
No.
It is a mini documentary series. I think each episode is like 15 minutes, and it's all for like a certain aspect of the show, like how they shot it, what the sets were like, how it was in that big room, the casting, how they chose their actors, and the directors. And they do a whole episode on the music. And man, I learned a lot. Like, it's such a good episode, just like talking about this one guy who's like, oh yeah, these are some of the weird instruments I used. And he starts playing a few, and I'm like, this doesn't sound anything like the show. And then suddenly it was like the main theme that like, da-dun. And I was like, oh, this is it. But no, I love The Mandalorian. I think it's just like you say, it's Star Wars, but like Western, which is what the first Star Wars is supposed to be influenced by, Western films and samurai films.
Yeah.
And God, Mandalorian's great. So season 2, you're excited?
Yeah, the trailers look amazing. Looks like there's a lot of really badass action.
Yeah. People are thinking that girl in the hood in the thing, like people are like, oh, is she just a Jedi? There's just some other Jedi. I watched Star Wars Rebels, and in that TV show, there is a character who is a Mandalorian who works for Ahsoka Tano, who's a character that has been confirmed for Mandalorian season 2, who she's a Jedi. And so I'm thinking that's that character from Star Wars Rebels, like spying on the Mandalorian, and I'm like, ooh, it'd be fun to bring them in. I'm so excited.
Is the child just Yoda? Is that what we're gonna find out, you think?
What do you mean?
Is it Yoda?
Oh no, because it takes place in the future.
Oh,
it takes place.
That's right. Because the New Order,
Return of the Jedi. Yeah.
First Order's in it. You're right. My bad. I'm stupid.
Which spoiler for Mandalorian season 1. The dude who shows up at the end with the Darksaber. Do you remember that right at the end of Mandalorian season 1? That is a weapon that has shown up in the animated shows, where both of those characters I just mentioned, Ahsoka, and the other character's name is Sabine, that's where they come from. So
So
I'm
what you're
like,
saying to me then is that the child is Yoda's
it's
illegitimate
just
kid. He's like,
dude,
whore hooked up with, I did.
that would be weird.
Dog ride, I did.
I saw something online the other day about like in Return of the Jedi. It's like as I gotten older and I became a parent, I started feeling a lot more for Yoda. Like this kid just keeps asking him questions, so he just up and dies.
That's funny.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, Mandalorian season 2, super excited. October
Very excited.
30th, which is, a little over a month away, which I still can't believe it's that soon.
I mean, it feels like a long time away if you say it out loud, but in reality, it'll be here before you know it.
Well, especially with quarantine, everything's flying by quickly.
And all the cocaine I've been doing. So
Quarantine and cocaine.
quarantine and oh, that's a good song.
Oh, that's a great song title.
Hold on, I'm gonna email it to Travis Scott.
Write that down. Write that down. So our next trailer is the Comeback Trail.
Yeah.
This looks interesting. It's Zach Braff. Is he directing it? Zach Braff's directing it,
I
isn't
don't know. Is that right? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Sorry, I've been listening to his podcast, so I can't remember if he's been talking about it. I'm gonna look that up. Comeback Trail. But then we also have Robert De Niro, Morgan Freeman, Tommy Lee Jones.
I thought we canceled Morgan Freeman. Did we not?
Why? Why did we cancel Morgan Freeman?
I thought I didn't know. My wife said something about it. Like he did something. Like Me Too'd somebody or something.
He Me Too'd somebody? I remember.
That's what I heard.
I remember seeing something like that, like maybe a couple months ago. But then immediately, like the following week, people were like, "Oh yeah, it was bogus. Like it wasn't real."
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that happened. And I don't mean to like false accuse. I'm actually literally asking the question.
Yeah,
I'm
something
not sure.
you had heard. And no, it's George Gallo is the director. Which
Zach Braff in movies is weird to me still a little bit.
Because you only see him as JD.
Kinda. I did, dude. I loved
Wish I Was Here?
Yes. I wish I was there. Dude, I loved that movie.
Mm.
Cried hard.
Written and directed by Zach Braff, which he's talented, man. Did you ever see Garden State?
I did. I loved it. It was really good.
That's the movie that I think I've pushed most people who like Zach Braff. They're like, "Oh, I loved him in Scrubs," and I'm like, "You should watch Garden State."
Again, though, it was like really hard to see him outside as not JT.
Right, because especially in both of those movies, he's like in Wish I Was Here, he's a bit more of a playful dad, but in Garden State, he's like depressed, and
absolutely
with
right.
JD, he's like a funny, silly character who
just
occasionally
a goofball.
cries. Yeah, exactly. So we see him as the goofball, which it looks like he's going to be a bit more silly in this movie, The Comeback Trail. Which, by the way, I immediately loved the trailer, but it was only by the end of it I was like, this is the producers.
It's funny because Emil Hirsch is now exclusively playing old Hollywood.
Yeah. I thought that was really funny when I saw him, and I was like, oh, wow, that's funny that he's back to this. No, I thought it was weird that like the plot is essentially the producers, but I do like how instead of like making a failure of a show that's going to bomb and then they'll get the money back from it, this is just like, we're going to make this movie and we're going to kill the actor.
So fun.
And we'll get the insurance from the actor's death and all the money coming back that we've put into the movie. It's brilliant. And then Tommy Lee Jones just won't die.
Just like in real life.
Right, exactly. Hasn't he been like 80 for 30 years?
He really has. He really has been the old guy in movies since 1974.
I know, it's crazy.
But I love Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah,
Robert Duvall and Tommy Lee Jones are my favorite two old guys. I love both of those guys. I mean, like think about the Fugitive is an amazing movie.
Oh yeah.
You know that
I
movie?
didn't kill my wife.
He's like, I don't care.
There you go.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
That was actually a really good Han Solo. Pretty good.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Harrison Ford, you mean?
Yeah, whatever. Same guy.
Same difference.
But yeah, so like this movie looks dope. I'm really excited about it.
I think
It looks fun.
it looks a lot of fun.
Hmm.
I'm excited to see Zach Braff do something else because I think the last thing I saw him act in was Wish I Was Here, which what was that, like 2014? That was a while ago.
At least at
Yeah.
the yeah. You know what, man? I wonder if we're just really movie thirsty. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, like this movie that we're seeing is actually like the movie we're talking about is really really bad, but we just haven't seen
maybe
anything in a while.
because there's no like there's no real new blockbusters headed our way. I like there's stuff coming out, obviously,
I mean,
but
Tenet's out, and I actually passed a movie theater today, and it was the Cinemark in Tinseltown. You
mm,
know which one I'm talking
yeah.
about? Uh, they have the board that shows the movie times. I was like, oh, so they're actually showing stuff, but everything was closed up, like gates down, doors locked, and I'm like, are you open or not? I can't tell.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought they were open too. I thought posters were open. I just didn't think anybody was going.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it's doing stellar right now.
Mm.
Man, I keep getting advertisements for Tenet, and I really want to see that movie. It's kind of killing me.
I mean, maybe it's safe though because nobody else will be there. So
That's a good point. And I did read something that like most theaters are like wiping down chairs after every show, which that's pretty crazy to think. Each and every
I,
chair to give like a deep scrub.
that would suck to work there. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but then again, if they're not doing as many showings, I mean, I bet a lot of those people are just happy to be back to work.
True that. My wife used to actually work in a movie theater when we first got together, and she still has friends there. They all got like furloughed, and some people got let go, and
It's the
it's a real
worst
bad
thing.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, I think overall, I just want movie theaters to come back.
too. I agree.
So our other trailer is Love and Monsters.
Hmm. Hmm.
The start of this trailer, I was like, this looks dumb. And then it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe you still think it looks dumb.
No, no, no. I think it looks really fun. It looks a lot very. It's got a World War Z vibe to it.
Yeah.
Not World War Z. I'm sorry. Oh my God.
I was saying yeah for World War Z because it's an apocalypse movie, and I was like, you're right, it is an apocalypse movie.
Zombieland. Sorry, it's got a zombie.
Oh yeah, because it's a little bit sillier. Yeah.
And what was the movie? Do you remember the movie where the zombie fell in love with the girl?
Oh, Warm Bodies.
Warm Body. Yeah. So it's kind of got both. It gives me a little bit of those vibes.
Did you like that
Both.
movie?
I actually did. Yeah. That was okay. That was okay.
I don't know. I just hate zombies when they're not zombies.
Yeah. And it was weird and to think of as like a possibility, but whatever.
It's kind of like
Uh,
why I never watched that show I Zombie. Did you hear of that one?
yeah, that's the one where wherever brain they eat, they get they
Like
take that
the memories
personality.
of the detective or whatever.
Yeah. No thanks.
Nope.
But like this looks, I mean, it looks fun. I like the kid that's in the lead role.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen him in a lot, but I don't know where I know him from. Is he?
He was in the interns. He was in
Oh,
Maze Runner.
that's where I know him from.
He was in American Assassin,
That's right. Okay, yeah,
which
I know who you're talking about.
which
Is
is
that
a
the same
really
guy?
yeah.
He
Lisa.
looks so different. But the overall plot of this movie seems to be that it's a couple getting together, and then the end of the world happens, and like monsters come up from underground or something, or from the sky. I'm not sure, but it forces humans to live underground, and he's going to leave the safety of underground to go and find her. And I think it's been like a year or something, or a couple of years, because everything's super overgrown and apocalyptic. But it looks pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie.
So yeah, so a guy just basically is braving a post-apocalyptic wildlands with monsters just to try to get a little.
Nookie.
So
That's what you were trying to say, right, Nookie?
well, I was doing a little more subtle.
Oh, you're doing subtle with the. Oh, okay. But for all those listening, means Nookie.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's Dylan O'Brien. He is the same guy. He looks very different in this, probably because it's a post-apocalyptic film and he looks dirty and overgrown. And then Michael Rooker just
I love that
showed up in the
Yeah.
trailer, which I was
He's
really happy to
amazing.
see him.
Yeah.
I think he just likes doing apocalyptic stuff,
Like,
especially
I'm
after
Mary
like
Poppins, y'all.
Mary Poppins, y'all. Especially after like Walking Dead. I feel like he just wants to keep doing apocalyptic movies.
Why not? Speaking of apocalyptic movies, Michael Rooker in Cliffhanger featuring Sylvester Stallone.
I don't know if I saw that one.
Oh, you shouldn't. It's bad.
The way you started laughing, I was like, I don't know if I've seen that one, and I don't know if I will.
I made my wife watch a lot of the old 80s movies and 90s movies that I used to love when I was a little stupid kid, and you know, they don't hold up, and they were bad then, but I still enjoy them.
But I mean, but when you're a kid, it's like, you know, if they're bad, you're like, but look at this really cool scene that makes the whole movie worth it.
Right. So yeah, pretty funny. But I'm in on Love and Monsters.
Yeah, I am too. I think it'll be good. But who knows? Maybe you're right that we're just like craved, like starving for movies, and this is actually
quite possible.
So we're gonna do some quick MCU news before we actually get to our Phase 1 topic. First off, an Ant-Man 3 villain has been cast, and it's gonna be Kang the Conqueror, and he's gonna be played by Jonathan Majors, which I recognize Jonathan Majors from Lovecraft County, which just released on HBO Max. But do you know who Kang the Conqueror is in the MCU?
I don't.
In Marvel Comics,
Mm-hmm.
he is a potential descendant of Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four.
Oh, okay.
And he lives in like the 31st century, and he becomes a time traveler to go back in time to then like conquer old civilizations to like become a godly figure. And he's an Avengers villain, but he's so ingrained in time travel that I'm like, maybe because Ant-Man's the reason why the Avengers time travel in Endgame, that's why he's going after Ant-Man.
I like that. And I until you said he's about time travel, in my head I thought, oh, they're just gonna make him some guy. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna trim all of that.
Oh yeah, no, like he has like a special space suit that he wears that like makes him super strength, and like he's an actual like reoccurring pretty big Avengers villain. You know, which is exciting that he's going up against Ant-Man.
Well, I mean that's a lot of fun then. That you know, it really kind of kicks off like I do want to see repercussions, and I do want to see results after Endgame. You know what I mean?
Well,
there's got to be that. You know what I mean?
Especially if you think too long about the time travel in Endgame, you realize most of it doesn't make sense. But so is time travel. You know, like the fact that, I don't know, Captain America just decides to completely alter the timeline and go back anyways and stay there. You know,
but all that stuff still happened anyway. You know what I mean?
Well,
like
right, but
and the reality is we don't know anything about the rules of time travel. And in reality, we don't. Everything is just made up. Like there's no real theory because there is no
time travel.
There's no practical application of time travel.
Right.
So now, to your point, you know, it makes the funeral that they go to for Maggie Carter different. Although I have heard them say that the guy, there's a guy in the front row or whatever. Like that is Captain America.
No way! Yeah. That would be so freaking cool.
I have heard that.
When I watched Winter Soldier, I realized, you know, she mentioned, you know, it shows pictures of kids that she had, and there's a documentary that he watches where she's talking, and she's like, Steve Rogers actually saved the man who would become my husband, and that's all she says. And in pictures on her like bedside table or on like her deathbed, there are no pictures of her husband, just her kids.
Oh.
So they honestly could have been planning something like this early on, or they just didn't want people to like really care that much, and then they're just like, hey, we've never showed the husband, this works, without like completely wrecking the timeline.
So does that mean that Steve Rogers got kids running around out there?
Ba, 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 ba. Super soldiers. I don't know if that's how it works, but
it's Captain America Jr.
Captain America Jr. And they are older, I think, in those pictures too. There could be just like the son of Captain America randomly showing up. That'd be pretty cool. Um, but what do you think of this big named like Avengers villain being an Ant-Man villain?
I think it's cool because I love Ant-Man, and I think
Ant-Man?
I love the Ant-Man.
Yeah, sorry.
I stop at the base. I also think that not that the other Ant-Man movies don't have credibility,
Yeah.
but I feel like this lends more credibility and more, I guess, kind of weight to Ant-Man.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be honest with you, the first villain in Ant-Man I thought was super boring. The second villain, Ghost, was more interesting, but specifically only when she was like a tortured soul that they ended up trying to help.
Yeah,
I wasn't a fan of Ant-Man and the Wasp, really. I didn't really like that movie.
it wasn't nearly as good. I do love
The
Walton
action,
Goggins though.
Walton
Yeah,
Goggins is great. The action in Ant-Man and the Wasp is great, specifically the Wasp scenes. Like her
yeah.
running on like the knives that are thrown at them. Oh, so cool.
I feel like we do have like a legitimate sophomore slump when it comes to sequels of these movies. So maybe the third one
Yeah.
will be awesome.
That's a
Um,
really good point. I mean, I feel like the only successful second film was probably Winter Soldier.
yeah, and Winter Soldier was dope.
Yeah, it's
So
probably one of the
um,
best Marvel films.
you know what, like who was the heavy in the first one, the
And
first Ant Man?
it was
Oh,
Yellow Jacket.
the Wasp.
Yellow Jacket.
No, Yellow Jacket. That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
You liked him? I thought he was kind of boring.
No, I hated the guy. But the suit thing that made it
Oh,
interesting,
yeah.
and the tiny Thomas the Tank Engine train fight is one of the most entertaining things I've ever seen in
Once
movies.
again, I'm just sitting there going like, man, the one thing that they kept from Edgar Wright's initial draft of the movie.
I loved
Giant,
it.
giant Thomas the Tank Engine.
I loved it. But I mean, I think that this does, and um, the way Ant-Man kind of always felt a little bit in the periphery of the MCU until Infinity War Endgame, because he did play such a large role in making that happen.
True. I mean, his film was just to introduce him.
Yeah,
The Wasp, Ant-Man and the Wasp was to explain where he was during Infinity War, and Civil War was just so we can have that awesome giant man scene.
right.
And that's about it. I mean,
Right. So
he hasn't added a lot to it other than time travel.
so this will do. I mean, I think this will do it. I think that puts him, and obviously he's kind of earned his stripes as part of the team, and
Also,
you know,
he's one of the next, in my opinion, like heavy hitters. If you think about it, if Ant-Man 3 isn't his last movie, if that's not Paul Rudd's last movie, I mean, we don't have Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. anymore. So maybe Paul Rudd's going to be the one to fill that spot, to be like one of the next heavy hitters of the Avengers.
yeah,
But I don't know. It's exciting.
yeah, great.
The other news is that we got a casting for She-Hulk for the She-Hulk TV series. Tatiana Maslany. I'm not gonna be able to say her last name until I hear somebody else say it. But she's going to be playing Jennifer Walters, Bruce Banner's cousin, who becomes She-Hulk. I'm really hoping they change her origin story. I mentioned it to you the other day.
They've got to.
It's so dumb. Also, why would they take blood from Professor Hulk? You know what I mean? You gotta think, well, this is not a good idea.
It's a good point. It's
Yeah.
a good point.
I'm sure they're going to make her origin story better, but I'm interested to see how she does. I'm interested to see how the show does because we still haven't seen a successful Marvel show yet. We're still waiting for Falcon and Winter Soldier, and
WandaVision.
WandaVision was confirmed that it's happening this year.
Really?
Yeah, the Disney Plus released a coming soon, like for Disney Plus for 2020, and WandaVision was on there, and they confirmed that it's going to be this year still. I'm like, that's crazy.
I got to be 100% honest with you. I don't have a ton of faith in Disney Plus to put out good Marvel shows.
We haven't ever gotten like a stellar good one other than maybe Daredevil season 1 and 3, and then Punisher 1.
Well, I mean, that was Netflix. But
Again, yeah, that's Netflix.
I'm worried that it's going to be worse than that.
Really? I mean,
Yes.
I don't know. It's a completely different team, but I feel like because they put like just the right people in the spots for Mandalorian to be so successful, I would hope that they're trying to do the same thing with these
I just
Marvel
feel
shows.
that the Disney like
This led
way, the
this lead
Disney way of like trying to like, make sure that She-Hulk has a friend who's got one arm shorter than the other so that nobody feels left out. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, yeah, I know what you mean, but they're planning that for, you know, I think that's going to be sprinkled in that kind of like, you know, representation is going to be sprinkled into every product as opposed to like, you know, here's something
well,
you have to focus on in this one.
and
You
I
know what I
feel
mean?
like every comic book movie has to have, or not movie, but a property has to have a certain layer of grit to it.
Right.
And and I don't feel like that Disney necessarily does that well.
That's a good point. Jennifer Walters actually is like a very tough lawyer who gets shot up and is bleeding to death, and that's how she becomes She-Hulk. So I'm like, I don't know how Disney's gonna handle that, but
Mhm.
you know, we did see, you know, enough grit in Endgame that I'm hoping they'll keep it up to that standard of grit, and that we continuously get there, or maybe push the boundaries. I mean, we still don't know what they're gonna do with Deadpool,
Right.
which I've heard very conflicting rumors about that, where it's like, oh yeah, they're gonna let them do what they've been doing. Oh no, they're gonna hold it back a bit. When he's included, he's not gonna be cursing, and you know, very different ideas, and it kind of changes how the character is. And Jennifer Walters, from what I've seen, is much more serious character.
Well,
So,
what they should do with Deadpool is they should just bleep him and like make him aware that he's being
oh
bleeped.
yeah, that's totally what they need to do.
Yeah.
But then I think the greatest thing I ever saw online was like that he's aware that there's only one F bomb you get in the movie, and he's saving it. He's like, oh, it's coming. But then somebody else uses it like on a throwaway joke, and he's like, no! He's like,
That's
what did
fun.
you do?
That's fun. That's really fun.
But yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with She-Hulk, and you know, I think Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be the first show that we're gonna see that will really prove if they're gonna do Disney Plus Marvel shows well. WandaVision is its own bubble, I think.
It looks goofy, to be
It does
honest.
look goofy, but I think that's what they're going for.
I'm a huge Anthony Mackie fan, so I think
Falcon Winter Soldier is going to be good.
yeah, I'm cool with that. I'm excited to see that.
I'm excited to see what they do with him, especially now that he's Captain America. You know.
Yeah.
And then the other quick thing I wanted to say is Black Widow. We still don't have like a set in stone.
Yeah, what
release
the
date.
hell, man?
Well, the thing is, I think because it's Black Widow and they know they haven't necessarily paid their due. Like people have been talking about a Black Widow movie since Iron Man 2.
Right.
And we're just now getting one, you know, after Endgame, after she's gone, and it takes place in the past. And I feel like because they know it means a lot to people who just want to see her, I don't think they want to throw it away on a digital release. So they're just going to keep holding it until they know they're going to make money and it'll be in theaters.
You don't have to, because since it is in the past, it can literally be released whenever.
Right, and I think that's most likely why they're holding it too, because I can't imagine there's going to be much in Black Widow that's going to shape Phase 4, even though it is the start of Phase 4. I did hear the blonde in that movie, Florence something. Do you know who I'm talking about?
And the Machine?
In the Machine?
Florence and the Machine?
No. No. There's some actress in there that she's like an up and comer coming out, and she kind of said that she's hoping that her character will be used in the future of Marvel, and I'm like, that's probably going to be their biggest like contribution with this Black Widow movie. Is
I just want to see more of David Harbour. That's what I want to see more.
I love him so much in these trailers, and all I'm thinking is he's gonna die.
He's definitely gonna die, right?
He's gonna die. I just know it. Especially because they put that line in there about like family back together again. This is good or something like that. And I'm like, he's gonna die. No. I don't know. I'm excited to see what they do with Black Widow, but I want to see it. I want to see the movie.
I'm
And
ready.
it could be what you're saying about like craving. Like I didn't really care about Black Widow's movies
I
until I think
did.
the last trailer,
Yeah.
and then I was like, oh, I want to see this. And then it's been months. It was supposed to come out in May. May. It's crazy. All right, we got about 15 minutes. Let's do our Phase 1 overview. This is going to be our main topic for the next 3 episodes because we're going to do Phase 1, 2, and 3. And today we're going to be talking about all of Phase 1 of the MCU and kind of reflecting on each movie individually. And then we're going to give our top 3 films of that phase, which makes it a lot easier because we're lowering the numbers down a bit. So starting off with Phase 1, we're talking about Iron Man. Classic, right?
I mean, like an incredible movie, like such an introduction, such
Yeah.
a red carpet into the MCU.
And then it also just places Tony's character so well that he has such a strong character growth in Iron Man 1 from weapons manufacturer, doesn't care about anybody but himself. He's making billions of so much money, and it's nothing to him because he can just do whatever he wants and doesn't matter, doesn't care about anyone. And then by the end of the movie, he's like wants to do clean energy and he's a superhero and he cares about everybody except himself, and it's just completely character shift. And that's only a stepping stone from where he goes in the rest of the films.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also interesting. First of all, like just brilliant casting on Robert Downey Jr. Just crushes the sarcastic like nature of him. And then, you think even in the first movie, you feel like you kind of already know him a little bit.
Right.
And his character arc in that movie, you kind of pick up on how far he's come in just that one movie.
Yeah, because at first introduction, you know who he is.
Right.
They introduce him in that movie, other than, obviously the car getting blown up with him, like escaping in like the battlefield or whatever. His other introduction is when they're doing that award ceremony and Rhodey comes up and he gives this wonderful speech about how great Tony is. And then he goes, Tony, this is for you. And then Tony's not there and he's playing like craps or something. And I'm like, that's him. That's Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Right. Man, it's such a good film. I went back, and it's one of those things that I love Jeff Bridges so much that when I watch him in this movie, I actually get a little bit sad because I'm like, man, I would have liked to see like what you would do in Marvel now.
Right.
But you clearly played the perfect introduction villain as Obadiah Stane. And then I did hear from a documentary that I watched that when they cast Robert Downey Jr., that's when other people got on board who were bigger names because they were it was like flyers to people because they were such a small studio. It was their first movie. They were like, please, please, please be in this movie, and nobody was doing it. And then when Robert Downey Jr. was cast, Gwyneth Paltrow hopped on, and Jeff Bridges hopped on, and it's pretty crazy to think that like that casting kind of like shaped how the movie was, and then that movie shaped where we were gonna go from there. It's crazy.
For sure.
So I can't give enough good credit to Iron Man 1.
I mean, like it truly is like a classic and not a fluke that it created this universe because it was that good.
Yeah, exactly. And I rewatched it. All of these films that we're going to be talking about during this, I'm watching all the movies in the phase for each phase, and I went back and I watched it, and I'm like, this like movie is so like perfect in like every way. It's crazy that after we've gotten so much, after we've gotten Avengers and Endgame, I still like hold this movie at such a high bar that they just continue to hit with each great film.
And even the tech and everything feels right. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you just buy it. You know what I mean? Like you buy in. I was
His
totally bought in.
oh man, I remember like watching it in theaters and being like awestruck when he just has the Mark 1 like hologram in front of him and he's like
Mm-hmm.
throwing pieces away to the
Mm-hmm.
side and
Yeah.
like he would have that tech that doesn't exist. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right. And that was 10 years ago. So
Yeah, it's crazy. And then now I'm thinking like where they are now in the movie. That's crazy. It's crazy, but I love it. I love every little bit of it. Next we have a movie that we've already talked a little bit about in this episode, The Incredible Hulk.
mm,
I think the biggest thing that that movie did, other than
suck.
other than that too, and other than being an introduction to Hulk, is the fact that Tony Stark shows up at the end of the movie during an after credits scene and he says we're putting together a team, and I'm like, oh man, they're doing it, they're really doing it. And it's just exciting to think that the Incredible Hulk, I mean, as not great as that movie was, it's great that it got to be a part of like this series of films that became so big. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shut up, Siri. I got Siri picking me up because I said series of films. And then next we have Iron Man 2. We were talking about this last week.
I think this is kind of like what spurred us to go on this journey, right?
That's right, because by the end of it, I was like, we talk about Marvel too much, and you're like, I mean, it's kind of big in the movie industry.
Kind of big, yes.
Yeah. I will keep saying like where decades ago it was the cowboy films, westerns. We are living in the age of superhero movies where that's like the big blockbuster that keeps coming out, and everybody's going to keep going and see it.
Source material being what it is, there's limited source material, and turns out there's a lot of comic book stuff. You know what I mean? Like, people have been out there creating comic books for decades with people not necessarily paying attention. So
giving
this
them
is
the time of day.
Right. So this is kind of like the new stuff, and it does feel a little bit cannibalistic at some points, like just taking stuff that's comic book stuff and maybe making it a little bit watered down when the comic books are
sure.
But not in this case. Not this. I feel like this celebrates the comics. Even if it changes stuff, it celebrates them. And
if it changes stuff, it normally does it for the betterment of story. I mean, take She-Hulk, for example. We're pretty aware of the fact that she's not going to become She-Hulk the same way she does in the comics.
Right.
Because it wouldn't make sense in the MCU. It's kind of stupid in regards to what we've been through. Like, the audience is smarter than that, so it's not going to be that. So when they change something, they do it for the better. The betterment of the story. And, it's actually, speaking of changing something for the better for Iron Man 2, I looked up Justin Hammer and, like, his comic book character, and he's an old, like, British angry dude who's a competitor to Stark Industries. And the fact that they made him Sam Rockwell and how funny Sam Rockwell is, I was like, this is perfect. This is perfect casting.
Sam Rockwell killed that.
He really did.
Killed it.
And all I'm thinking is like, man, I wish he came back. That'd be cool.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he could though.
Yeah,
he's not dead.
That is the other thing that, going back to Incredible Hulk, the Abomination still exists.
Yeah.
Like somewhere. I think they said he's in that prison that they go to in Civil War, like on the water. Like, Abomination's there. And I'm like, okay, so he exists. He's a thing. So use him, I guess. It'd be really cool. But Justin Hammer, I think, was such a good character. I'd love to see them use him again in some way, especially with how good Sam Rockwell is.
Well, I mean, like, who do we have left? We have Zemo. We have him.
Right. Zemo, they're going to make into a major villain in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Really?
They even released like a picture of him in the classic purple mask that he wears in the comics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're going full comic book for that.
That's exciting.
And back to Falcon and Winter Soldier, they said the Leaper, The Leaper, the French dude that he fights on the boat at the beginning of Winter Soldier. Do you remember that?
No.
The dude that's like, I thought you were more than just a shield. And so he puts down the shield and he takes off the helmet and they fist fight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's the dude that just like kicks a lot. And I looked it up, and the Leaper is one of like Captain America's reoccurring villains. And he's been cast for Falcon and Winter Soldier.
All right.
And I'm like, all right, they're making it comic booky, which I kind of like, reoccurring villains.
Continuity, I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. But Iron Man 2, we talked a lot about it last week, and it is a movie that gets short-shrifted a lot, but I watched it, and I had a great time, and I think I just really enjoy seeing character development. And this is the worst Tony is, but it's only so he can get better. You know what I mean? This is really like the worst he gets because he's dying. And oh man, we get Howard Stark for the first time in the MCU. We get to see him, and that scene, I talked about it last week. Him telling Tony that like, you were my greatest creation is so sweet. It's so wonderful.
And you got to think Terrence Howard, as much as I love him, definitely Don Cheadle is an upgrade.
Kills it. Don Cheadle is so good, and he only gets better as the movies go on and they get more screen time. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm really happy we got Don Cheadle from this one. But yeah, Iron Man 2, I hold it pretty high, even though most people don't. But next up we have Thor, another film that kind of gets short shrifted, and we talked about it earlier.
It's also what Mike Tyson gets when he's been running a lot.
He gets Thor?
He gets Thor.
It's so bad.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Did you like my Mike Tyson? Did you like my impression of him?
That's pretty good, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, it's no Han Solo impression, but it's pretty good.
I could try it again. But Thor, you know, like I said earlier, if you watch that movie like it's a Shakespearean play, it's really good. Also, Loki, I realized after watching these movies, because I watched The Dark World for the first time. I didn't really tell you about that, but you know, with me rewatching them, I went and finally watched The Dark World. Loki gets really great character development in every single Thor movie. Mm-hmm. And this one really, like, you know, if you think about, you know, at the start of the movie, we see little Thor and little Loki, and, you know, Thor is saying, Father, when I'm king, I'm going to go to the Frost Giants and slay them all just as you would, and, you know, to make you proud. And Odin's giving him, like, a very smart, kingly speech. And when you're watching that, you're thinking, okay, here's Loki who knows how to be a king, and here's Thor who's brash and, you know, doesn't know what to do. And then the movie literally flips them. And Loki wants to kill all the Frost Giants because it's what Odin would want. And Thor's the one who comes to their rescue in the end. And it's pretty interesting to see that, like, character development and growth. It's also heartbreaking every time to watch Thor trying to lift the hammer in New Mexico, and he can't. That always breaks my heart. I don't know if you get the same reaction with that.
Yeah, and honestly, like his whole I guess we'll call it hero quest.
Yeah,
of
journey
of learning of like his limitations and being, you know, inadequate, something he's not used to feeling, because, you know, being taught humility after a lifetime of inhumility. I think that plays really well, and you know, I enjoy the movie a lot, and despite, you know, the fact that I wish it was a little bit more like Ragnarok.
Ragnarok, yeah.
But I think that this is I like the way that it plays with good and bad.
Yes, because
like, good and bad is so like subjective and so like everybody's both. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what we've come to learn from these movies.
Yeah. It's truly saying, like, just because it has a face that you can associate with evil. Take Thanos, for instance. He's a really complex character who has
absolutely
pretty good reasons for what he's doing.
Right.
Even if they're the wrong thing to do. But we can look at that and say, yeah, but I get why he's doing it.
Sure.
His whole planet was destroyed because they didn't listen to his crazy idea that would have worked. We know it would have worked. And you know, it's the same thing with Thor. Loki is a character that like we want, and everybody still to this day loves Loki as a character, but he's done so much bad over and over and over again. But because of the way these films play with characters, we can go, I can forgive Loki for what he's done, and that's kind of crazy to think. You know?
And you know, not everybody's all good and not everybody's all bad.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you've seen Loki do good things as well. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just, I think that this movie, you know, like you said, you mentioned watching it as Shakespearean, and I think that's a great tip to watch this movie that way.
Yeah, think of it like you're watching a play, and it's you'll really enjoy it, I think. Next we have Captain America: The First Avenger.
Love it.
Yeah, and this is also a movie. I think Phase 1, a lot of the movies get really like overall looked back on like not well, but I think it's because Iron Man was such a high bar that none of the other movies just hit that for us. But when I go back and watch them now, I'm like, all of these are great.
Yeah.
All of these are really good. First Avenger, I love so much. I don't know. What were you going to say?
No, it feels like a serial. It feels like a, you know, a matinee serial, and it has such a good old-timey 40s vibe that you feel. And honest to God, dude, in movie trailer history, one of my top 3 is the one that they did for this movie where they used Tool.
I don't even remember this.
Oh, I'll send it to you. It is.
Please do.
It is phenomenal
Just
the
a
way they
great trailer.
use. I mean, like the trailer is like, because it's like it doesn't belong. The song doesn't belong with the movie in any shape or form, but it works so well. And you know, like kind of almost reversing my statement of that nobody's all good and nobody's all bad.
Right.
You know, you got somebody who's pure and good.
And then he's going up against somebody who's all bad.
All bad. So, I mean, it does. And you know, is that a callback to that's the way things were back then movie-wise? Or is that just because, you know, that's the way it was? I don't know. But either way, some incredibly, like, I don't know, like people who aren't into this shit might call it cheesy, but but it's stuff that I really am into. Like when he was holding the car door with the shield on it,
I
with
love
the star, that was awesome. When he was on the plane with Howard Stark and Agent Carter.
So you fondue?
Right. He's getting kind of jealous. I mean, that's like awesome. You know what I mean? Like, it's so
you gotta
good.
keep remembering him as like this nerdy kid who's never been suave. He's never been confident, and now he's everything anybody wants to be. He's big, tough, and he can win in a fight. And it's great to see him like kind of tiptoe his way through that. If there was anything I'd change about this movie, it'd be that stupid kiss that he has with that one girl who's like, "Let me thank you for all the wives of the men you've saved," or something. Do you remember that? And then like Peggy turns the corner and she gets jealous, but then they never come back to that. I hate that. I hate that part. Maybe because that's cheesy. Why do you like that part? I mean, it does lead to that great part where he's like, "What do you think?" And he's holding the shield and then she shoots it. She's like, "Yeah, I think it works."
Because it shows just how different he is now, that like women are throwing themselves at him
all over him, and he's not used to it.
He's not used to it. And dude, like when he first comes out of the bubble and Agent Carter's like touching his abs.
That's right. She's like,
it's amazing, dude. Like,
doesn't she like touch it and then like a nurse comes up with like a towel to like dry him off, and then she's like, "No, I'll do it."
How great is that?
It's so really awesome. Good. Tommy Lee Jones is great in that movie too. We were just talking about him.
Of course he is.
I ain't kissing you.
Have you ever seen a Tommy Lee Jones performance that wasn't great? No, maybe Man of the
Men
House.
in Black
Maybe.
3.
I didn't see Men. Oh, I did see Men in Black 3. Okay, yeah, I'll give you that.
But that's because the movie was bad, not because.
Yeah, you
Well,
can't really blame him for that. He's
yeah,
just taking a paycheck. So,
it's true.
but yeah,
Um,
Captain America is dope, and I love his boys, his Howling
yeah, Howling.
Commandos.
Yeah, Howling Commandos. That was it. And the montage of him being like a show guy and how
Mhm.
awkward he is at it at first and how he hates it and he think like and you show it later, you know, he's drawn like himself in a monkey costume and he's a dancing monkey or whatever. But it's the fact that like you see him get more confident as he keeps doing it. He
Right.
actually does like cuz at first he's like reading off of the shield just kind of like this and then by the end of it he's like super confident and everybody's loving it. I'm like, oh, this is so good. But it's only he realizes it's bad when he does the USO show and the soldiers are like, what does he say? He's like, for this next bit I'll need a volunteer. I already volunteered, why do you think I'm here? Oh man, I love that movie.
It's great. It's great, and a lot of the great lines. You know, a lot of the great action.
What is it when he
Um,
saves? What is it when he saves the guys from the compound? And one of the guys is like, who are you? Do you even know what you're doing? And he's like, of course I do. I've punched it like 200 times, over 200 times.
Perfect. It's perfect, and
So great.
good action and fun, like gadget stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
just awesome. Just an awesome movie.
So good. And then once again, we get to see Howard Stark, but younger,
Mm.
but also like, you know, when he first shows up on stage doing that like hovering car that doesn't work, I'm just
Right.
like, this is Tony's father. Yep,
Yep.
100%. I love that movie. And then of course it leads into the Avengers, probably the biggest film of that year, because we got to see let's count them 1, 2, 3, 4 separate heroes from different films and franchises: Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Captain America, with additional characters that we've seen along the way: Nick Fury, Black Widow, Hawkeye, all come together in one movie. First time anything really like that has happened, and man, it was epic. I remember
And it
freaking
worked.
out.
Yeah, like I remember wondering if it could work because it was so many
So
big,
big.
but it did. It worked great.
It was so perfect. And I remember watching the end of that movie, and it's the after credits of the guy who says like, to challenge the Avengers is to court death, and then turn and we see Thanos' face, and that was in 2012.
Yeah.
8 years later, or 7 years later, we would have Endgame, and it's crazy to think all of it has been done in 7 years. It's really crazy to think that all of this has been done in 10.
Well, and they've done such a good job, and like the way they've released it and the timing of it all is it's just been really strategically brilliant. Honestly,
I was also going to say for Marvel, you know, I hate to say it, but COVID was probably a really good thing to happen for them creatively, because I feel like us as an audience are really getting a breather. I remember the moment Endgame was done and they announced Phase 4, we talked about it on this podcast, and you were not into any of it. You're like, I don't think it's going to be good. We've had enough of Marvel. I was saying, you know, like they should have just stopped at Endgame. But now, after all of this time that has happened of us getting no Marvel content, I'm ready for Marvel content. I'm
Yeah,
ready to
for
get
sure.
back to it. And to think it all started with these movies, and to see where they've gone from here is pretty crazy.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. And the Avengers was a huge, massive success, and the way characters play off each other, that scene of all of them arguing in the room is one of my favorite scenes. You know, with Thor saying the like, "You are all so petty and tiny." It's like, it's just so good. Everything that's special about you came out of a bottle. You know, all of those
Oh,
lines, all of it's
that's
so good. And it's like that argument shapes their characters from then on out.
right.
Cap proves not everything special about him was the bottle, it's his morals.
Right.
Tony proves that he is the guy who would lay
Lay
down
down
on the
on the
wire
wire.
to
Yep.
save the other guy. He does it
Twice.
multiple times. Yeah.
He does it in that movie.
He does it in that movie.
Yeah.
He saves the day by throwing the nuke in the wormhole, which after rewatching Age of Ultron, I love the part where he literally goes, "Anybody remember when I put a nuke through a wormhole?" And then Rhodey's in the back and he's like, "No, never came up."
Dude, see, Rhodey is the perfect best friend to
Don
Tony
Cheadle.
Stark.
Yeah.
Oh, this is perfect.
So good.
Yeah.
But man, I'm just happy that all of these movies worked, but I'm even happier that the Avengers worked so we could see what they could do next.
For sure.
If the Avengers didn't work after all the other ones did, what would have happened?
Who knows?
They might have not continued after that.
They might have scrapped the whole thing and tried new stuff.
Yeah. And it's crazy that now, after all of this, the Avengers was the property that nobody wanted to work with. Only people wanted to work with X-Men, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man. Those were the big three. And Marvel didn't have the rights to them. And now they do. And now we're going to be getting those. That's so exciting.
It's the ultimate revenge right there.
Yeah, for real. They're like, oh, well, we sold you Spider-Man. Now we're using them. But yeah, I love these movies and everything that they've done. So let's do a Phase 1 top 3 out of these films. What would be your top 3 going 3, 2, 1?
3, The Avengers. 2,
really?
Okay. 2, Captain America. 1, Iron Man.
I think mine is
in order, by the way.
I think mine is the same, except Avengers and Captain America is reversed. I think I go Captain America number 3, number 2 Avengers, number 1 Iron Man. And
yeah, and I get it. Like you're not wrong. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think it's because I think the reason why Avengers is number 2 is because I get both of them. I get both Iron Man and Captain America in this movie, and they get to talk to each other. Whoa! Oh God, I still can't get over that. After all these years, I still can't get over that. Like this movie's main character and this movie's main character are conversing. It's crazy.
That's wild.
It's wild. Don't make fun of me. All right, real quick, we'll do our recommendations and get out of here. This has been a long one.
It has been a long one, but it's been fun. I can talk about these movies all day, man.
And we will next week.
So, for my recommendation, I'm gonna dip back a ways. I used to do a morning show with these guys, and one of my jobs was to interview football players in the locker room.
Oh, okay.
At the Jaguar Stadium. And one of the questions I would always ask is, what's your favorite show? They always said The Wire. Everybody said The Wire.
Interesting.
And I hadn't at that point watched The Wire. So I moved in with a friend of mine, and we started watching The Wire, and I started to see why it was everybody's favorite show. My wife and I are rewatching it now because she's never seen it. So I'm introducing her to The Wire, and as I rewatch it, I realized just how great it is, from all of the performances to how clever it is written, how faithful it is to Baltimore, and what they're going through, and it's 5 seasons. It's a fairly short watch actually, because it's maybe 60 episodes. But it's great. It's amazing, and I highly recommend The Wire on HBO.
It is a very, very smart show. And my question to you is, do you think that show can find a new audience now?
I do. And even though the technology...
well, that's the main thing I was going to say.
Yeah.
Most of it's just pagers,
Yeah, but that's such a small part of what they're really doing on the show. And as you move forward, season 2, it changes.
It's true. Yep.
Season 2, they don't even, it's not even the same. It's cell phones at that point. So,
that's right.
And then another thing that's great about the show is, through the 5 years, you keep up with the characters that you've met along the way, but each story is told from a different, I would say, pillar of the city. So you got the police and the drug, and then you got the ports, and then you got the newspaper, and then you've got the politics, and then there's another one too, I can't remember, but it's five different perspectives of the same problems in the city, and I think that's like brilliant.
So well spoken, and it's so well spoken that I wish I went first, because my answer is dumb in comparison. because I've been in such a Marvel mood, and
Uh,
I've been rewatching the phases, and every time I go on Disney Plus, I see Fantastic Four on there, like from the
oh
early
no.
2000s.
Oh no.
So my recommendation, as is a recommendation for me too, because I want to talk about it next week and like give my opinions after watching it, is watching Fantastic Four.
Oh no.
Look, I
With
know.
Jessica Alba?
Yeah, but the thing is, listen, that movie has an era about it, kind of like The Wire.
An error about it, more like.
Come on, man.
No, I'm kidding. You're right. You're
But
right.
you know, it's just like watching Chris Evans as the Human Torch, and you know, it's not a great movie, but they humanize Ben Grimm, the Thing, very well in that film.
True. True.
The actor who played is Reed Richards. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Super likable and plays it really, really well. And I don't know. It's like it's a movie that it's like I feel like at the time everybody loved it because we didn't really know what a modern superhero movie was supposed to look like yet because we didn't have Iron Man, we didn't have the MCU.
You're not wrong. I mean, this is the era that Punisher came out with
Yeah, but then
Thomas Jane. So
right. But then we also had the X-Men, which is a
mm,
movie that literally made a joke about like, what were you expecting? Yellow spandex. But then
mhm,
here comes the Fantastic Four, and they're wearing their bright blue spandex. You
right.
know, so it's playing off that where I feel like maybe X-Men took it too gritty, Fantastic Four took it too silly, and then finally when we get Iron Man, we get a nice in between. I mean, his suit is bright red and orange, which is not
Mhm.
necessarily subtle, but it is still looks real, looks like it could be a physical thing, and I feel like the help of the success of the Fantastic Four is what lends to the inspiration for the MCU.
And you know, I do like Chris Evans as Johnny Storm.
He's awesome.
He's pretty good. And Michael Chiklis is a perfect Ben Grimm as well.
Yes. I forgot
I
that was
mean
Michael
the
Chiklis.
I did see I saw the new one, and as much as I love Michael B. Jordan, by the way, Michael B. Jordan also in The Wire, as a child.
What if I was like,
Uh,
what if instead of Fantastic Four, I was like, everybody watch Fan Four-tastic instead. Also with Michael B. Jordan.
Michael
Sorry.
B. Jordan is awesome, but just I don't know, man. Like it didn't play for me for some reason. The last one,
It didn't
the
know what it was supposed to be.
I think they were too young, man. Honestly,
Yeah.
is that weird? Is that
No,
weird?
it's not because Reed Richards I always consider like early, mid, late 40s, like that range. That
Well,
30s
he
to
always
40s,
had the
he had
he
the
had
gray
the
in his hair.
yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, he was kind of too young for it in Fantastic Four in 2000s, but it was like the space storm that gave him the gray. I know you're rolling your eyes, but come on. It made them look like the whatever. I like that movie.
There's Jessica Alba. Should have sent her to mime school.
My friend actually mentioned the Fantastic Four the other day, and he was like, "You know what's weird? They do like 3 nude scenes with Jessica Alba in that movie."
Oh,
And I'm
that's
like,
true.
because she's invisible.
Right? Yeah.
And when he went back and thought about it, he's like, there was no reason for it the first time. And the second time she goes, I can't believe I'm doing this again. She walks through the crowd naked, and then when she gets there, she unnakeds herself, and then the other two just run in anyways. So they're like, what was the point of her getting naked?
No point. No point.
Oh.
Because Jessica Alba at the time was one of the hottest young actresses in Hollywood, and they always do. You know, I mean, Sin City was the same way. They teased,
Right.
you know, the fact that you know you might maybe get to see something from Jessica Alba.
Maybe. But I don't know. I can't say I really like Fantastic Four because I'm gonna rewatch it and we're gonna hear my opinions next week. This is so exciting. Cut to next week and I'm like, this movie is the worst.
No, because Fantastic Four 2 was actually way worse. So
That's true. There was a video I saw online where it was like, Dr. Doom's only goal in that movie was to say "Surf's Up" on Silver Surfer's surfboard, and he never got the chance.
That's funny.
I thought that was really good. But all right, that's gonna do it for this week. Man, it was a long one, but thank you all so much for sitting in and listening. And if you're a fan of Marvel, awesome. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're not a fan of Marvel, why are you still listening?
Yeah, right.
Catch us in 3 weeks when we're not talking about Marvel anymore. Because next week we are talking about Phase 2. So if you want to watch with us, I'm rewatching all the movies. Tank, I know you're kind of going back and forth with the ones that you can get to. So watch with us and, give us your opinions too. So that's going to do it for this week. Tank, how you feeling?
Feeling great, man. I thought it was very fun.
I thought it was a lot of fun too. I'm really excited for next week. But this is No Talking During the Movies. Please listen to us on, whatever you can listen to your podcast to. You can find us on YouTube now as well, No Talking During the Movies, and on Instagram, No Talking During the Movies there as well. So that's going to do it for this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Go.
No, go for it. You're okay. Go for it.
You go first, right? And I'm the you do the thing, or did I do the thing? Who does the thing?
I'm Steven.
I'm Tank. All right, we can go now.
Bye.